What's going on, guys? Zach Evanish, ZachStrength.com. Taking a short walk with the dog, and it's been a couple years since I've done a live video on Facebook. I've been giving Instagram too much credit, and in this video, I want to talk about having second thoughts on the safety squat bar for athletes. So today, and I've been thinking about this for a while, I actually had a conversation with my friend yesterday, Jesse Ackerman, who has been on the Strong Life podcast. He's the strength coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I was talking about how a lot of these younger athletes, they don't have the upper back development. And sometimes my thought process is utilize this safety squat bar, take the strain off their shoulder, especially if it's a baseball player, and, preserve the body, give them long-term health. Then a lot of times I think about, you know what I want to do? Garrett, if you got 5 minutes, you want to hop on this video with me and do a live chat on this topic? Give me a yes or no, brother. See if we can get Garrett Keith on here. He's one of the early days certified underground strength coaches, saying what's up to everybody, and talking about using, let's see if I can bring Garrett on board here. All right, buddy, let's see if we can work this. Garrett Keith. Yep. Okay. All right. See if that works. Big guy. Garrett. Hey, buddy. Garrett, you hear me? See if Garrett can hear me here. There you go.
Hey.
You hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, buddy. So let's do a little 5-minute conversation on this. So I'm not sure what you have at your school. Give everybody a little intro. You're a strength coach at a school in Tennessee?
In Alabama.
Alabama. And how many kids you see every day, roundabout? About how many athletes you train every day?
I got 150 athletes that come through my class every day.
All right. So I don't see that many a day, but here's the topic: utilizing a safety squat bar for the athletes. Now, got a little echo here. I'm second guessing that idea because of if a kid struggles during a squat, first thing he wants to do is take his hands off the handles and put them on his legs. Whereas if we've got a straight bar, we're flexing the back, we're working the mid and upper back. And we're basically being tighter as a unit. Whereas before I was like, let's use the safety squat bar to preserve the health of their shoulders.
Yeah.
But I've just found that with that safety squat bar, their technique sometimes is less than desirable because their back not being tight. What are your thoughts?
I've had athletes that'll have an issue with trying to put their arms on their legs or take their hands off the bar, and I got that notification that this is the topic that you were talking about, and it intrigued me because obviously you're a guy I look up to a lot, and I love using the safety squat bar for all of my athletes. I think in the long run, it's better for them. For my kids, because of the multi-sport kids that I have, so a lot of their shoulders are taking beatings over the year, whether it's through overhead athletes, whether it's through football or volleyball or whatever. I think just coaching them up on how to stay tight, regardless of how much they want to take their hands off, and even sometimes having to lighten the load, because if they're having to can't
So
keep the correct throughout.
that being said, my answer to correcting that, well, at least part one is going to be go through some volume training with the straight bar and not heavy all the time, almost utilizing the strongest shall survive method, where he would have a rotation of heavy, medium, and light with regards to the squat, bench, and the power clean. And so with the squat, rotating that, getting them to squat 3 days a week, as long as it's the off season for them, with a straight bar, go through like a 3-week training cycle of it. Learn that, teach them how to tighten up even more on the back, so that when the safety bar comes back out, they remember that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
How often, let me ask you this. When you guys are squatting, do you preset their weights, or what kind of guidelines do you give the kids with regards to how to add weight during a training session on the back squat?
My higher level kids do have their weights preset.
Okay.
They've got a rep range that they can hit based on their APRE settings and auto regulating their loads for them. When they first start off the squat, they got to obviously earn the right to use the barbell. We start off very light and progressively work up, but yeah, they've got their load set for them generally.
And how many kids are in each class?
It ranges. My smallest class is 16. My largest is 33.
33. How many guys, how many coaches are on the floor?
You're looking at them.
All right. When you organize a squat rack, let me back this up a second. Is it the same grade level in each class, or is it mixed?
No, it's mixed. It's 9th through 12th, co-ed, all different varying abilities, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so when you organize a squat rack, where do the kids go? Is it by gender? Is it by strength level? Is it by height? How do you organize it?
I organize it so I've got in-season athletes, off-season athletes in the same classroom. So half of my room is in-season, half of them is off-season. And then each class is separated. They know what rack they're going to based off their block progressions and the time of year it is. So, I maybe have a rack with 3 volleyball players, and then another rack with 4 football players, and then a rack on the other side of the room that's got 4 off-season athletes, maybe basketball and baseball.
Okay. Now, when you're squatting, what do you rotate? Are you just squat, or do you rotate in pause squat, box squat, safety bar, straight bar, any rotation, any conjugate sort of implementation?
Yeah, when it's, I guess their squat is their strength movement of the day. It's generally safety squat bar. During the summer, we will rotate in some box squats. And that is a true box squat, not a squat to a box.
Gotcha.
And we do, they'll still front squat with an Olympic bar on Wednesdays as their second tier movement. But on the off season, their Fridays, their first tier movement is their squat. And it's a safety squat bar. For my in season, it's on Mondays, and they squat on Mondays.
So you're talking about tiers. So are you implementing the tier system?
Yes.
All right. Last night while I was in my office, I know Big House Joe Ken going to be upset. I think I must have let a coach borrow my tier system book, and I didn't get it back. So I was looking for it. Talk to me about, I heard you mention front squat. You doing a weightlifting style front squat or the bodybuilding style, or it depends?
Normally a weightlifting style front squat.
Nice. What you've got grades 9 through 12. do you communicate with, is there a school that tends to feed kids to your school, like another private school, where you communicate with maybe sport coaches or physical education teachers to do any kind of prep work leading up to coming to your school?
So we're a K through 12 school.
Oh, okay.
So our 6th grade through 12th grade is on the same campus. Our 5th grade and lower is at another location a couple miles away. And I actually work with our middle school students during the summer. And now 1 day a week during the school year, I'm working with our middle school students as well.
So you know what I say about 1 day a week training? It's 100% more than zero. It makes a huge,
Right.
it makes a huge difference, tremendous difference. What kind of things are you doing with middle school? Are they in the weight room, or are you inside of a gymnasium that's open?
I bring them into the weight room, and we've got, I run them through what I consider a true block zero, where they're going through isometrics, eccentric phases of just body weight under control, learning how to move their body properly. So we're going through a hinge pattern, a squat pattern, a push pattern, a pull pattern, all those kind of things, just teaching them how to groove those movements throughout the year.
What about, let me ask you this question, Garrett. Have you ever had a kid where you were like, man, this is the weakest kid I've ever trained. He's not making progress, or everybody else is making progress much faster than he is?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Talk to us about like maybe any of the conversations you'll have with that kid, homework you might give that kid, or how you adjust those exercises for him, or adjust anything.
To me, it's just, we all develop at different levels, physically and mentally. And with those kids, I'll just pull them aside and say, hey, I know your buddies are moving up a little bit faster than you, but right now we've got to keep doing what's right for you. And I'll give them homework. I'll tell them, hey, or I'll ask them first, do you want to get better? Do you want to get to where these other guys are? And if they say yes, then I'll say, hey, these are the things that you can work on at home. These are 5 things you can do every night that aren't going to have a negative effect on you for the next day. They are just going to make you better for the training, and all of a sudden you're going to see great progress. And for the kids that say, no, coach, I'm just going to do what I've got to here, I'll say, hey, man, you're going to stay slacking behind, and give them that option.
Wow. So you have some kids that say, I'm good with what we're doing, or good with what I'm doing?
Yeah. I've had a kid that said that before, and I appreciate the honesty, and I'll tell them straight up, hey, if that's all you care about is having your name checked that you were here, then man, you can be here, but you're never going to reach the potential that God gave you. And the couple of kids that I've had do that in the beginning have come back later and said they wanted to make a bigger change.
Yeah, that's interesting. What do you think helped them make the change? What happened to the kid?
Eventually just seeing all their peers go so much further than them in the program, and realizing that extra work was going to be worth it to make an impact in the long run. I think if you build a culture where kids are constantly wanting to progress, then those few outliers who maybe don't want to in the beginning, they realize, hey, the lack of work I was putting in, I'd much rather put in the work than to be on the outside looking in.
Right. Sometimes kids, they change, and they get, I think, more emotionally ready for the effort required, not just in the weight room, but things that they got to do outside of the weight room nutritionally, and practicing calisthenics and body weight skills. So that stuff's interesting. You mentioned culture. You have any signs or quotes that are hanging up in the gym or outside the gym, or anything that you could reference while you're there that gives the kids a reminder?
We've got a couple quotes in the weight room, nothing too huge. The biggest thing that I've got in our weight room is we give a yearly Top Cat Award, and I've got 6 foot by 4 foot banners of those kids that have won our Top Cat Award in our weight room
for the year. So it's it's all year, not a monthly award.
Correct. I do a weekly award that's just on an 8 by 10 sheet of paper.
Okay.
But we do a big yearly award, and it's really a career award. And I love honoring the kids that have put in the work to make an impact on our school. And that's one of the things that when you walk into our weight room kind of grabs your eyes because, as much as when I first got there, I thought about putting up pictures of Arnold or, all that, the old school guys. I said, that's not going to mean anything to these kids.
Sure.
What's going to make an impact to them is them leaving a legacy and the kids that have made an impact on them before. So I think that's probably the biggest thing in our weight room. Then we've got an athlete attitude board where it goes through 5 different attitudes that you have and the impact they have on your team, from a winning team to a losing team.
I like that. I have a buddy. He's an administrator now, but he was a wrestling coach, and he said everything in the wrestling room was only the team awards. There was no individual awards in the room. He said outside the room is where the individual trophy case and the individual accolades and awards were. And so when you give an award, is it per grade level or per class, and one for the boys, one for the girls?
I generally do one for the boys, one for the girls. And I'll tell them I'm not going to give one if nobody earned it that week. I had a week.
Sure.
I've had times before where I had just a female on the weekly award.
Right.
And I showed it the next week. I put it up on the wall, and the guys were looking at me like, "Coach, who's the guy?" I said, "None of y'all earned it. None of y'all were worthy of having your name on the wall this week."
I like that.
And it just, I wanted to use it as a challenge to them too, to have a different attitude and a different work ethic.
I like that you're doing it every week. I really like that because that keeps it fresh. A friend of mine in the NFL, he puts up like these drawings that he makes on a big whiteboard, and then puts up a new one every week. And the reason behind it is because he erases it, and then every week, like, you need to create a new masterpiece. You got to create a new work of art, essentially. And I was like, how come you don't, put them on paper? Why put it on the whiteboard? And that was his reason. He said, because every week's like, it starts anew. You can't just say, hey, I did this great masterpiece last week or last month. Like, so the whole consistency aspect behind that, I like that a lot. So, I guess let me ask you a last question. I appreciate you hopping on too, like this.
Yeah, man.
You've done some podcasts in the past. I've heard you on Ron McKeefrey's podcast. And has there ever been like a question that you wish somebody would ask you about that they don't ask you? Something you feel is very important, whether it's related to the strength game or not?
I don't guess there has been. There's so many different questions that I've been asked about the people that have influenced me, about X's and O's, and about, I think all these different podcasts have different purposes for them. Some of them are really into X's and O's. Some of them are more about the journey that you've taken. I think the one that I just did with Coach McKeefrey was more journey based and more culture driven. And I enjoy talking about those things because there's so much information out there about how to develop a program as far as X and O's are concerned. And obviously there's some bad information out there too, but with guys like you and Joe DeFranco and all the guys that have been putting out great information for so long, we can find that information. I think the great thing is to hear what other people are doing in their rooms and in their schools and in their facilities, to find out how they're influencing those young people that they get to work with every day, and to get new ideas on how to be a positive influence on the kids.
Yeah, and I think, the National High School Strength Coaches Association is blowing up, and that's a real powerful place. The forum is very powerful, where there's so much free exchange of information. To be honest with you, it's I think that's missing in other areas of the strength and conditioning profession. So it's like the most, what's the word I'm looking for? There's just everybody's just basically trying to help one another out. And I
Mhm.
think it's not a whole lot. It's not as much like that in the college sector probably because of the way it's such a volatile profession at the college sector. But cool, man. Well, I appreciate you jumping on, Garrett, to talk a little bit about this little squat dilemma that was going through my mind. And I was speaking about it to Jesse Ackerman yesterday about, hey, man, like when I used to squat, or a lot of us squat, anybody who's probably late 30s and older, I said, we only had a straight bar. Although I did see the Hatfield bar or the Jesse Hoagland bar when I was 14 at a fitness center, believe it or not. But I was like, I just think you get so much from your back by squeezing that bar. But then the flip side, like you said, is we got multi-sport athletes or we have baseball players that are playing year round. And so, the longevity piece is something I think about a lot. So I appreciate you coming on, my man. You want to mention anything before we shut it down?
Man, I want to mention you. Man, you made a big impact on me a lot of years ago. I remember going up to your underground strength coach certification, and waiting outside the doors with Frank and Ori and all those guys, and just waiting for you to drive up. And
Long
it was a
time ago.
real, man, it was a really cool experience. And I appreciate all you've done for us. And then seeing you a couple of years ago at the Northeast NHSSCA Regional, I was like, man, I wonder if Zach will even remember me. And you came up and gave me a big brother hug. And man, it's cool what you're doing and how long you've been doing it. I appreciate you, brother.
The time goes fast. That's kind of scary. I think you were in maybe 2010.
Yeah, it was
Probably
2010.
2010. So 9 years ago, 9.5 years ago, you probably came out around the summertime or like late spring.
Yeah.
And just time goes crazy fast. And I have to redeem myself. I want to be real transparent. Like normally when I speak, I don't do PowerPoint. So when I spoke at the NHSCA I think it was like 2 years ago, I had a bad review. One guy was like real disappointed with how I spoke because I jumped around a lot. And I said, man, that's it. I have to redeem myself at the next speaking. So getting feedback for me is always important. I'm always trying to get better, and it's just cool. Like I feel more connected to coaching these past few years than ever before, man. So I appreciate you too, man. Just seeing what you're doing, seeing how our industry is moving. Like I feel the National High School Strength Coach Association, the guys are so pure with coaching. It's just, I like it a lot, man. I connect to that a lot. So it's inspiring. And I think you got, were you regional coach of the year or just national coach of the year?
Yeah. This past June, I got the National Coach of the Year award. It's kind of,
Excellent.
it's still blowing my mind. And I got to go in with one of your guys up there in New Jersey.
John.
Coach McKenna was the Hall of Fame inductee, and that guy is one of the realest dudes there is. And
Yes.
to be able to go in and be at an award ceremony recognized with him was really cool.
Yeah, he's been around for a long time, and he used to host. He used to just kind of come up with an excuse to host seminars. So he was managing a fitness center down in South Jersey when I met him, and he brought me and my friends in to do seminars. Then he got the strength and conditioning position at the prep school, and he'd bring us in to do seminars. And he brought Louis Simmons there, and just a great guy. Whenever I do my fundraiser, he brings the most people. I mean, there's been times where he's brought close to like 50% of the attendees. So he has such a from a coaching standpoint, I think the people love him so much that the kids don't want to let him down, and it kind of reminds me of how I feel about my high school coaches. Is like I love them so much for how they changed my life that like I still say to myself, okay, you're gonna do XYZ, like be great at it. Don't let them down because you were, they cut you into, you're cut from their steel. So as coaches, it's just we got a real important job, man. So I'm looking forward to hearing more from you, and maybe when you and I both will try to link up our schedules and do something on my Strong Life podcast and dig into this real deep.
Man, I'd love to, brother.
Cool. Garrett, thanks, my bro. Have a great
See you,
night,
my man.
buddy.
You too.
Thank
Bye.
you, guys.